I think it's safe to say that we are now in the post-New Atheism era. That doesn't mean religion has made a return, far from it. It just means the excess of the New Atheists, the militancy and the aggression that they harboured, doesn't really fit in an era where many Europeans feel like we're losing the heart of our culture as well as the heart of our continent. As stated before on the channel, I don't think you can blame people if they can't find it in themselves to believe, if they've had bad experiences with religion or spirituality, or if they find it objectionable. Yet I think many of us would agree that it would have been wiser to treat our Christian tradition, culture and history with a bit of respect rather than disdain, due to it being a vital part of our heritage, morality and social and artistic conceptions. But alas, as a culture, broadly speaking, we did not, and New Atheism was marked by a particularly virulent strain of iconoclasm. I know, as I used to buy into it as a university student who believed that science was ultimately completely imperious and irrefutable. Yet today, while I can understand people's anger towards a tyrant bishop or a pedo priest, I feel that lots of the commentary from the New Atheists is, to say the least, excessive. I remember I used to repeat things like this from Richard Dawkins with complete righteousness as a student. The God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction, jealous and proud of it, a petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak, a vindictive, bloodthirsty ethnic cleanser, a misogynistic, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully. This became the de facto view for many Europeans. Religion was a stupid thing for stupid, deluded people who've done untold damage to the world, created racism, sexism and all manner of other evils that have damaged our liberal conception of true humanity. Yet as we've experienced in recent years, the brave new world of rationalism, science, humanism and materialism hasn't exactly gone to plan. In fact, we've got weirder and weirder. There's a saying in the men's work arena which I've often lived by, and that's that in the hole of the absent father all manner of demons can enter. Just as we can appreciate the danger children in when the stabilizing presence of the father leaves the home, it's the same on a cultural level when God the Father disappears. We lose our tradition, and that allows in all manner of foreign ideologies: wokeism, liberalism, leftism, neoliberalism. Each of these now compete to be the power structure of the age, and all of our institutions must now answer to them in varying ways. We've experienced a hammer blow to mystery, to the transcendent, to love that is love beyond the sexual and sentimental. We've lost the life force of the tradition that was the lifeblood of Europe for so long. And this means that, quite understandably, no one goes to church anymore. But worse still, even if you did go to church, many people would find it's lost its energy. And as I've explored before, on the one side all you have is ageing conservative vicars looking aghast at the state of the modern world, confused as to why and how things got this way as they look out to their congregation, which now just numbers a handful of old ladies. On the flip side, you have the more modern, liberal, left-wing church. In essence, this is just another vector for liberalism to express its power as the church desperately strives to, quote, stay relevant. They do this by playing tawdry, bland music that sounds like something Chris Martin would write to, quote, honour Christ. In my view, it tends to be more disrespect to Christ, and have the opinions of your average Guardian reader. Of course, in doing this, they are trying to chase the approval of the world, which is a sin against God's universal truth. But as you might imagine, if I was to express such an opinion in such a church, I would be given the Dawkins speech of being a misogynistic, evil, old, racist, atavistic bully. But talking of the Dorkster, despite being one of the four horsemen with a stated aim of destroying Christianity, he's lamented the decline of cultural Christianity in recent times amid the surge of Islam. Who could have predicted that happening? We also see these shock stories in the modern media these days about how village churches are being retrofitted into mosques. And of course it upsets many people because it's an evident sign of the Islamification of Britain, which is really just globalism getting its teeth in. Now, it's easy to be mad at Islam or Muslims for this, but what did we think was going to happen? We've invited millions of them here. They're not just going to clap like seals while people like Richard Dawkins tell them Allah is an evil, racist, fascist bully who deserves to be resigned to the dustbin of history. Put bluntly, they're not going to embrace the rational humanism of the liberal world. They think it's going to sexualize their daughters and undermine their tradition. After all, many of us in the Western world are concerned about that happening because we've lost our own soul. So as much as it pains me to see this going on, the harsh reality is Islam has lifeblood running through its veins, and many people in the West have already given our heritage away, and the young lion is taking over from the old. Now, with this in mind, I think it's clear in a lot of the response you get to what's going on, it still shows we don't get how deep the rot is. This is a Kelly J. Keane stating, "Dear Brits, if you don't like churches being turned into mosques, you should go to church." Now, don't get me wrong, I appreciate her sentiment and her heart is clearly in the right place. But the brutal truth is that even if we did start going back to church, half of it would be, let's all have the Islamic call to prayer next Sunday, isn't that inclusive? And the other half would be a somewhat watered down, old school, softer Christianity, which just wouldn't speak to the challenges and the problems of the age. So in essence, we are checkmated. The Christian tradition is essentially on its knees. Many Westerners are completely lost in materialism and the election cycles, believing that eventually it'll just turn around. Islam, meanwhile, is on the up. It's the fastest growing religion. It's taking on a lot of new adherents in the UK and abroad. And on top of that, the birth rates are higher than the native population. As well as that, of course, it's the favoured religion by the powers that be. So, it's over then. The West is lost. Drink up the booze, try and sleep with as many women as you can, garner as much material possessions as possible before the inevitable Dawkinsian eternal sleep of nothingness. Or is that really the case? Everything I've been speaking to up to now has been about the total destruction of the West on the material plane. Yet at the centre of our tradition is the promise that the spirit is indelible, it can't be broken, and sometimes the material world has to be destroyed in order to come back to these core truths of life. What we're now witnessing is Western man, the collective Western soul, having to have its head smashed against the wall until it can be broken free of its illusion of total materialism, total liberalism. In breaking free from that, we will see the rebirth of history, philosophy, and spirit. This is why I would look at the present world with no fear. In fact, I'd see it as a transformational time, a time of cleansing, healing, and rebirth. Just as the great of European literature Dante showed us in his Inferno, we have to go through every single rung of hell till we get to the very centre. What's so notable about Dante's Inferno is when he gets to the centre of hell, it's not fire, but ice he finds. And this is because it's a metaphor for the true lost soul is that without warmth, without love, without connection. When we look at the modern Western world today, despite our material wealth, there are many problems. We feel like it's corroding. And there's a sense that there's no longer a sense of community. There's no longer a loyalty. There's no longer a love for our nation, our peoples, our history, our tradition, our spirit. Now in Dante's Inferno, in order to escape hell, Dante and his guide Virgil have to go right through the centre of hell. And this is why I'm wary of these moves to try and conserve elements of where we're at today. We're just putting ourselves back to a higher rung of hell. We need to go right through the middle of the chaos and be reborn into a new age. This, for me, despite the darkness, is the great hope for the future. It's the one thing that could inspire our young men and get them to take an interest in their own tradition once more. Something that involves courage, spiritual journey, transformation, the real meaning of life beyond the material realm, life and death and rebirth. These are the real things in life that truly matter in the final analysis. Of course, it's very much a mission of mine to speak about these things on the new channel where I speak about personal and spiritual transformation directly. And if you want to connect with me and get exclusive content, do join the Substack. On top of that, do let me know your thoughts down below and do consider subscribing to the channel if you're new.